And we're live.
Yay!
Yay! I'm so excited to be here.
Yeah,
Me
I feel like
too.
I think we all sound good, right? I feel like we have, yeah, it sounds pretty good.
Yes.
Yeah.
Awesome. Let me just turn this off so I don't get distracted. Okay, cool. Okay, awesome. So I just wanted to welcome everybody to the live stream. This is our monthly live stream over here on Snarled slash Something Scary, and we have a little bit of a different setup this time. We actually have two people other than myself on the live stream. So do you guys want to take a minute to introduce yourselves? We'll start with Grace and then Pythian Priestess. I don't want to speak on anyone's behalf, so I want you guys to do the intro, your introduction.
Yes. Hello, guys. This is Crazy Grace. I am a K-pop celebrity hostess and actually do true crime paranormal investigations on GrazyTV. So here I
I love that.
am.
And hi, everyone. My name's Pythian Priestess. I am an initiated Hermetic priestess, a cult teacher in Los Angeles, California.
Okay, so I think this is so fascinating because I feel like we have obviously people from different backgrounds on this live, but going back to Grace, how did you get into true? I know you do beauty and true crime. How did you get into those things, or what interested you in that?
Yeah, I actually was a K-pop singer. I debuted in 2016, and then I got into a whole lawsuit. So I got into this, law thing and mysteries and exposing like the K-pop industry actually. And then I got into spirituality, and little by little, I've always been interested in probing at mysteries because I apparently have a Scorpio in my seventh house or something like that. And so I love true crime. I just want to solve the mysteries. So I just started my channel, and it grew.
Yay! What about you, Pythian Priestess or Ashley?
Yeah, my mundane name is Ashley. You guys can call me whatever. It doesn't matter. Geez, mysteries and the occult has always been a part of my life. So I know from a very young age, I wanted to understand the universe and I wanted to understand spirits. And I was a ghost hunter for a while, but not the way that we did it. Like we used equipment, and I didn't even have tarot when I was doing original ghost hunting. It was just EVPs and your feelings.
Yeah.
Mm.
That's interesting. Okay, so before we get into like our experience, because we're going to be talking about Mentryville, and we did a mini investigation there. We'll be showing some clips for people who didn't know we did that. You guys can watch the full video over on Grace's channel, GrazyTV. All of our links and socials will be in the description. But has anyone here ever had like a paranormal experience or an experience that they couldn't explain?
For me, the only time it was very visual was when I was about 5 or 6. I was still living in Korea, and I remember I fully woke up, and it was so hot in my room. I wanted to go sleep with my dad in the living room. So I peeked out, and there was like this woman, black figure, and she turned around and she was walking towards me. And I grew up super Christian,
Mm.
and
Oh.
that's delusional. So I was like, oh my God, I am hallucinating. But I know growing up, now that I'm spiritual, that was definitely not hallucination. That was, I don't know who it was, but I used to have a lot of those kind of experiences as a kid. Not as much visual anymore now I'm an adult.
Interesting. What about you, Ashley?
Mm. So my experiences with like seeing stuff was it happened a lot when I was younger, like Grace. I had this one experience. There's an island off the coast of Florida called Fort DeSoto. And we took a boat out there when I was a child, and there were ruins of an old fort. And I was playing in them. I must have been like 7 or 8. And all of a sudden, the best way I can describe it, it was like I like went into a different dimension or time where I saw like this terrible, horrible battle happening. And I got really scared. And that's happened a couple of other times in my life. When I was older, I researched a lot about that island, and there was a really terrible massacre of indigenous people on the island, and I had like seen it through my own eyes, and did not. That was not fun.
Whoa.
Yeah.
No, it doesn't sound fun.
Mm-mm.
Wow.
GrazyTV and Snarled crossover, yes.
Yay.
I guess for me, I've shared it on here a few times, but I think the one that I've recently been trying to like really understand a little bit better. I was also young. I was in middle school, and I don't know if anyone here has ever been like obsessed with vampire lore. I got into like the Anne Rice like vampire chronicles.
Mhm.
And I was reading a lot of these books, and so was my friend, and I was at her house, and we lived like 2 3 houses away from each other. And she's like, oh, don't look at the full moon, because we were getting to like vampire and werewolf lore. And I was like, oh, just to like make fun of her or tease her, I was like, I'm gonna look at the full moon, because she's getting all scared. And I know we hear some like somebody running from behind us, like full pace. But here's the
Mm-mm.
weird part. It was like a black shadow. Like, you know, if someone's wearing like a bodysuit, like, you know, like the ones that you see for Halloween, like the colored bodysuits. I saw that, and it was just like coming after us. And I was like, that's weird. So what made it weirder too is that it was a full moon. So I like the light should illuminate from people. Even if you are walking at night, you see a light illuminating. And it chased us to my house. And I looked at it. I took a minute to look at it, and I was like, wait a minute, like, what is this? And it didn't, I couldn't see any features. And then it just like floated into the bushes in my neighbor's front lawn. It was weird. And I asked my friend about it.
Yeah.
She remembers that, because I'm like, I can't just be imagining this.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So anyway, that's my weird experience.
Did
Oh,
you feel someone go past you? I'm just curious. Did you feel like physical movement?
no, it because like we booked it into my house, and the entrance of my house is a glass porch, and then past the glass porch is like the entrance to my house, if that makes sense.
Okay,
And yeah, I just stood there. It was weird. I don't
that's
know.
strange.
Yeah. So now we're gonna get into the whole thing with Mentryville and ghost towns and all this stuff. Has anyone here ever been to a ghost town previously to Mentryville?
No, my first time.
Oh, really? What ghost town did you go to, Ashley?
I went to Calico up in more mid Cal. It was a mining town, and I had another creepy experience there. But I like ghost towns. I think they're really cool.
They are. Colorado has a lot of them, so I'm interested to read more about Calico. Um, yeah, they're. I feel like ghost towns are just very eerie because people left behind a life there, essentially.
Yeah.
Um, okay, so we have a question. Could you guys explain to me if the shower turning on by itself counts as a paranormal experience? It depends. I don't know. Like, does anyone want to answer this, or do you want me to pick at it?
I would just say that you always want to rule out any mundane purpose that the shower would have turned on it by itself, whether like a leak or something like that. Uh, but if you rule those out reasonably, then you might have a paranormal experience on your hands.
Yeah.
Hmm.
Like looking at everything, like what could have made it turn on? Is there a leak? Is there a faulty knob on your shower head or anything like that?
Hmm.
Yeah.
Cool. Okay, so with that being said, going into like the ghost towns and stuff like that, what was your expectations, Ashley and Grace? Like, what was your expectations going into this ghost town? Like, what were you? Did you guys know about it? Did you look up any past history on the place?
For me, it was like my first ever paranormal investigations. I literally went in with zero expectations. I didn't even know what to expect. So for me, nothing. I didn't research anything. I didn't really, on purpose, to kind of want to experience this for the first time.
I love that. What about you,
I
Ashley?
I did not do any research because I knew we had a historian coming to assist us, and sometimes I think it's helpful to go in a little bit blind when you want to do an investigation and then have it verified or debunked.
Hmm.
Interesting. Yeah. Yeah, I think like there's like a balance, right? Like on one hand, like it's good to go in with like just a fresh perspective and just wanting to just experience things. But then on the other hand, like it is nice to know the history, and we did have a historian. So shout out to Evan. Evan was our historian, and he does overlook Mentryville. And like I said, there's going to be a link in the description if you guys are in Southern California or Los Angeles County and want to visit this place. You guys can reach out to them over there. But I remember last year there was a paranormal convention, and I got invited to moderate a panel, a true crime panel. Um, and it was interesting because when we went there, it was Friday. There wasn't a historian there, so it was just kind of like free for all. Like you're gonna go in there, and we're just gonna see what happens. But there were so many people there that I just didn't experience, like I don't feel like I was getting the full on experience. Like yeah, I sense things, and I'm so glad that like we got to visit, I got to visit a second time with Evan being there, because I didn't know like what was I feeling. So the schoolhouse, and we're gonna get into it too, like did have energy, but not like the children energy that one would assume is there. And then he went on and explained that someone passed away outside of the schoolhouse, which was is very tragic.
Do,
Um,
did your experience from the first time at our time, was it very different?
It was like I think it was
Mm.
just like nice to experience it with without a bunch of people there and all the noise and chaos, because it wasn't as organized as I thought it would be. And like no shade to the paranormal convention. It's just that like I think so many people were bouncing between like the schoolhouse, the main house, and like the barn and all of that stuff. So people were coming in and out, and it took me away from that moment, if that makes sense.
Mm.
I know that when my husband and I entered the schoolyard, we did feel like my husband pointed it out. He's like, "There's something like more in front of the house, like that little room before you enter the schoolhouse." And I'm like, "Yeah, I feel it here too." And then
Mhm.
it's so interesting that like Evan explained that there's that flagpole there, and he was like, "Yeah, someone fell off the ladder here and passed away."
Yeah.
Yeah. So were you guys expecting that, or like I don't know, like what was your thoughts on the schoolhouse?
The
Grace, you have the
schoolhouse,
floor.
yeah, the schoolhouse was pretty cool. I guess I was kind of expecting maybe seeing shadow people or maybe like the knocks. We didn't get to experience that, but I got to experience the spirit box for my first time ever in my life, which was so exciting.
Yeah.
Um, but of course, like I'm listening and I'm not listening to your questions. So for me, it seemed like rambles, but I know to you guys it's answer the questions. So that was cool.
Yeah, let me play. Okay, there's a part that I thought was really interesting. Let me get to that timestamp, and then I'll play it here in a second. Ooh. Okay. Oh, got it. Okay. So let me. Okay, bear with me, guys. I'm gonna try
Mhm.
to.
Somebody said, "Where's this paranormal convention? I want to go too. A convention for ghosts."
Yeah, it's a paranormal convention. It's called Pearpod. I think they just made the announcement on Instagram,
Mm.
and hopefully, I'll try to make posts about it. But it is in Santa Clarita, so not too far from Mentryville.
Wow.
Let's see. Oh, here we go. And we'll play it.
Yes, that lit up a couple times.
Yes.
Is there audio playing for people?
I think so. I hope they can hear
Mm.
it. Can you guys hear it? Oh,
We can.
interesting. Okay. Let's see. Let me take my headphones off. Hopefully that will. All right. I'm going to change it here.
An outlet here.
Can you guys hear it now?
Words. So it's similar to like it's picking up the energy around us and generating them into words. So I mean that's not surprising, but what's surprising is like how it correlates to the theme of what we're talking about. That's the interesting
So
part.
we're about to
is,
get
like,
into
if
the
you can get
compelling
this
part.
to, like, respond to certain things and be like more on point. Bed,
What is that?
relics, bed, curse.
Well, there's a lot of relics here.
What's a relic? Makes sense. Relics, yeah.
But the most prominent equipment that you could use is the spirit box. So this spirit box is basically a radio that scans multiple stations rapidly, and ghosts are supposed to kind of stop it really quickly at a station that they want to communicate a certain word with. Or if you try to ask questions, which this is what we did, they try to stop it at a specific word that the radio is playing, and we're trying to pick up the messages that they're trying to give us.
You heard Gracie?
Gracie?
You said her name.
You said your name.
My name's Grace.
Crazy.
Yeah. I said my name's Grace or Gracie.
Okay, Gracie. Yeah, that was.
Isn't that interesting?
Mm-hmm.
Let me take this off.
Did
They
you guys
also
hear
knew
it?
you were from YouTube.
I thought that was.
Oh yeah.
What was that?
Well, I think I was like talking to somebody at the time, but I didn't hear it. But I think you guys
no,
did, right?
1 second, guys. My audio again. Okay, sorry. Can
No problem.
can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes.
Oh man, I can't hear you guys.
Oh,
Oh no.
we're still here.
Can you guys hear us? I'm so sorry. I think mine might have messed up.
Yeah, we could hear you.
People in the chat, can you hear us? Can you hear us?
Oh, now I can hear you. Okay. Gosh, sorry guys.
I hear
What were you
myself
saying?
echoing.
Oh, echoing. Okay, can people in the chat hear us?
I could hear you.
Okay, cool.
Great.
Okay, so what were you saying? Sorry.
I think in the moment that when I was at the schoolhouse, I think I was talking to Ashley or something. I know, but so I didn't hear the radio, but I think you've heard, let's say, Gracie, my name.
Yeah,
that
I
was
heard-
interesting.
Yeah, we also heard YouTube at one
Yeah,
point.
on YouTube. Yeah,
Yes.
that's
yes.
crazy. So did they
So-
know our energy, or they saw into the future me uploading this?
Well, you came with an intention. We came with an intention to make a YouTube video.
Yeah, true.
Yeah. Well, I think also we were outside, so this was not caught on camera, but I think this was the moment before no, it was on our way, I think, to the main house. I don't remember, but I remember picking up your grandmother when we were walking to one of the buildings, Grace.
My grandmother?
Yes.
Oh wow.
Remember? I think I might have mentioned it was really quick because we were like trying to listen to what Evan was saying.
I don't remember. Or maybe you mentioned it, but I thought you were talking about some other grandmother, not mine.
Oh, interesting. Okay. Yeah, I don't know, but I feel like when we were at the schoolhouse. Oh, sorry. Someone said we're echoing. Wait, are we still echoing?
No, I don't hear you guys.
Okay, cool. I'm like, hopefully no one. Hopefully. Yeah, it just so I remember like so with that being said, I think sometimes in my experience doing the Estes method, which what people saw was the Estes method where you're wearing headphones, you have your eyes closed, and like you're basically like repeating what is being scanned through the radio, and then the people on the other side are asking these questions. So I think that like in my experience, I've noticed that people's loved ones come through that. So it's not even just like the hauntings itself, like a haunting that's taking place in the location, but it's also people that might be like thinking about a loved one, or you know, whether they have like a guardian, and I call them guardians, they come in through as well. So it could be someone that might know you from the other side. I don't know.
Oh, so did you feel my grandma's energy, or did the radio say something about my grandmother?
I felt your grandmother's energy.
Oh,
And I remember
wow.
mentioning it, but it was just like so like there was like Evan talking, so I was like, oh, okay, I'm just gonna like try, because I'm not trying to be rude and like tune him out. So I was like, interesting, but I don't know.
Wow, that's so cool. So when you get these, how do you feel that it's like a grandmother or grandfather? Like, how do you distinguish between the classroom and like a loved one?
Yeah, so I do a lot of channeling through like clair sentience, and I also see things visually. So I do a lot of like clair voyance too. And so what happens is sometimes like I have this sense of feeling, and then like my visions, my third eye starts to open up, and I start to see the correlation of what I'm feeling to help me discern what that is. I also do a lot of channeling with my own spirit guides as well. So I try to not directly communicate with spirits, but I try to use like that as a middleman, because sometimes like I feel like it's really uncomfortable communicating directly to spirits because you never know what you're communicating or what you're opening yourself up to. And so when that happened, but I remember prior, like I felt like a sense of like a very maternal, very like motherly figure, but it didn't feel like your mother. It felt much older than that. So I was like, interesting. That feels like a grandmother energy to me. And then I saw like in my vision, like like a symbol of a grandmother. I'm like, oh wow, that's really cool. So that's your grandmother coming through.
That is crazy. Oh my God. Actually, my grandmother recently passed away last fall. So,
wow.
yeah, wow, that's crazy.
Yeah, so it might have been like did they know about your YouTube stuff and everything too?
I'm sure they know in heaven, in real life. I'm sure she was too old to like watch YouTube and stuff. But yeah, wow. Actually, I should get a spirit box.
Yeah, I mean, that's another thing too. Like I always try to do cleanse my equipment before and after. A lot of paranormal investigators don't, but I feel like it's so important to do that because I don't want something coming in through my equipment. As well as like, I know like Ashley, Pythian Priestess, you did a cleansing before and after as well. So we did a lot of precaution with that. Okay, someone has a question, Hannah. Did you know that necromancy is common in Eastern countries? What are your
What's
thoughts?
necromancy?
Ashley, I'll give this off to
Well,
you.
yeah, so necromancy, there's a couple of different ways to describe it, but ultimately it's contacting the dead. And then in more extreme versions of necromancy, it could be even raising the dead or transferring souls into a new body.
Wow. Wow. That reminds me of like the zombie stuff in, I think, Haiti or something, where they rise
Yes,
the
yes.
dead.
hmm
Wow.
And you can see in some cultures, especially if you look at like Taoist magic, you will see that there is a positive, healthy version of the magic, but there's also very evil or malefic magic that can be used, like trapping souls, etc. So um, I found, it's interesting. Every culture has their own way of communicating with the dead, and I think necromancy need not be like a negative thing.
Mm.
And Dungeons and Dragons, I feel like, has definitely sensationalized that term. The board game. Okay, so we have someone that asked they missed the live, but can you guys gently remind people what you guys are known for?
For me, I am a K-pop celebrity hostess, and I also have a big true crime channel. So I do a lot of Asian true crime cases.
Yeah.
My name is Ashley, or Pythian Priestess, and I talk about the occult, esotericism, and magic, both on TikTok and Instagram.
Thank you. Yeah, sometimes people pop in and ask questions. I'm like, okay, we can gently remind people. It's fine.
Mhm.
Okay, cool. So let's segue into the main house. Let me
Mm.
fast forward to that. Whoop. All right, so let me share this.
The main house was definitely really outdated.
Yes.
That itself was spooky. Just
Yeah,
Yes.
little urban exploring for you.
Can you guys hear it?
no.
No.
Okay, now can you guys hear it?
Yeah.
But I think we're also like almost kind of like directly above the other
I did not
room.
like that pantry.
People say this is the most active room on the first floor.
There's 13 rooms in here, and the historian said that this particular room is a room that a lot of people just do not want to go in. They just feel this really heavy, bad energy.
So this is the room that people say we get a bad feeling.
Oh yeah, never mind. I did go in here and I didn't like it. I remember now. That's Carl. I'm pretty sure this is the room.
Yeah.
So we went to the other one. Yeah, that's Carl for that because if I'm
Now, I did go in and, I felt fine, but I didn't stay there long enough. And again, maybe I'm not too sensitive to ghost energies. Now, this is where the story gets really interesting because in this house, the word box was going off, you guys. Like, there were negative words, like literally every 3 seconds.
Really?
yeah.
Bottle.
More.
Consider.
Weapon.
You said women.
Weapon.
A weapon?
Mate.
Yeah, some crazy words.
Right. Can you guys hear me now?
Yes.
Mhm.
Yes.
Cool. Yeah. So that house definitely had some really interesting energy, and it's felt very different than the schoolhouse. And I think even like for people who are like maybe not even open to like the paranormal in that way or energy work or spirit work like that, it's fascinating for me to hear that you felt a huge difference between the schoolhouse and the main house. Was there anything that struck to you or anything that like stood out when you guys were in that house?
Maybe there's an echo.
Oh, can you hear an echo?
Hello. Hello. Yeah.
Oh, sorry. Can you hear me now?
Hello. Yeah, no echo
Yes.
now.
Yay. Okay. Perfect.
For me, I guess like because I'm not like a medium or I've worked with like spiritual energies, I didn't know like energetically if I felt different. But I did remember like trying to challenge myself, hey, what am I feeling instead of like the history or whatever behind it. Energetically, I felt okay, but it was definitely weird seeing that word box go from like no words to just completely death, alcohol, affairs, children. That was
Yeah.
like crazy for me to witness.
Right? Oh my gosh. What about you, Ashley?
Yeah, I was very surprised to see the difference in the activity. And it wasn't even in the room, it was outside of the room, which I
Mm-hmm.
thought was interesting. The other thing was Evan and his friend, when we were downstairs, they heard someone run across the hallway. So I
Interesting.
I think that in the house, like the energy, it just moves more. And like we talked about that, I didn't like that one blue room either. It felt like a pressure in the
Mm-hmm.
chest that I didn't like.
Yeah. Okay, so someone said they're about to leave, so we'll answer their question. They said, "What do you guys use to cleanse your equipment? Also, is there something similar to necromancy?" I'll go first, and then I can hand it off to you guys if you guys want to add on to that. So, what I use for cleansing my items, I usually use like either like holy water, cascarilla, which is like eggshell powder that's been prepped for cleansing and protections and stuff like that. The other thing too is when it comes to like necromancy, I don't know, I feel like that term does change over time, like Ashley was saying. And I think like necromancy, in my opinion, and when I gathered, if I were to deduce it or make it simplified, I feel like whenever you do anything to communicate, like bone reading is necromancy, right? Like using bones to read. Either using tarot to communicate with the deceased is a form of necromancy. So like I feel like in general that terminology is an older term that has roots to any form of communication with the dead. But because of sensationalism and words changing over time and movements, spiritual movements happening, that word has had a bad rep. So a lot of mediums, what you'll see is like they'll do some of these things, but they'll call themselves mediums. And I feel like that's, if you're doing tarot to talk to the dead, or if you're using bone readings to talk to the dead, or anything like that, it is a form of necromancy, and I would say that in some way it is adjacent, or if not doing, if they are a necromancer, but without the stigma of Dungeons and Dragons and black magic. Did you want to add on to that, Ashley, or anything? Or
I was thinking like when I don't have ghost hunting equipment per se, but when I do cleanse things, I use holy water, which is made with um, moon water, hyssop, and salt. I also do smoke cleansings, usually using frankincense, myrrh, and dragon's blood. Um, for the necromancy, I've communicated with the dead before. Um, I work with a specific god to do that, named Osiris. Um, I also like, I'm not going to get on my tangent about like levels of auras and stuff like that, but I think, like you said, Stephanie, necromancy has changed so much. It's such a broad term. It's hard to say.
good question though, but yeah, it's just like that. I feel like that's a whole tangent in itself.
hmm
Um, how about consulting a shaman? So, I mean, okay, so that's a good question, Hannah. So, I personally, I feel like with any person, any specialist, you want to see if they're vetted for, like they have credentials, they have like, something that you can look at their history of work. There's just so many people that
Yeah.
like claim to be shaman, which they're not. And also people misuse that term as well, shaman. Like, especially when they try to root it to indigenous people. I've had indigenous people flat out tell me that that's not a term that is indigenous or Native American, it's Eastern.
Oh,
They want to be called medicine people. So, especially coming from a medicine person in Navajo tribe who is a person that literally takes care of sacred land in Arizona. That's what he said. So I'm gonna follow in that definition as well. So I don't know, but that's my take. Like, definitely check if they're vetted for.
hmm.
Okay, I don't know what that question is, but someone has a question. Pythian Priestess.
What would you think if people believe in science for knowledge, God to know what's right and wrong, like for wisdom and for nature to be one with nature? So there's a lot of difficult concepts within this question because you're looking at well, the first question is what paradigm are you looking at? There are many different traditions and pantheons that have different belief systems. So if you look at science, I'm not going to get on this tangent either, but science is always changing as well. That's what progression is. It's changing with new knowledge. Science and magic are two sides of the same coin. So they're both seeking the same answer, which is knowledge of the universe. Ultimately, I do believe in the unity of all things and all people, places, things, etc., at the highest level of existence. I feel very satisfied that answer. I think that covers a lot there. If you're interested, you're welcome to send me a message on Instagram, and we can talk about classes and courses that you might be a good fit for.
Yeah, good question. Good answer. Okay, so Senna, sorry, I mispronounced it. What spirit box app do you guys use? I don't technically use apps. Since I have a physical spirit box. I would say with apps, it's it's nice to use it if you don't have the equipment because the equipment can be very expensive.
hmm
I would say if you can try to use physical tools alongside apps because there are some apps that have been proven to not be as authentic, like like listening through your phone where you guys are and generating words. Like in the case of like a Polter Skipper of Ovulus, the apps do generate words and it listens to where you are. So it's not really authentic. It's I would say same thing with a spare box. I will try to link it and pin it in the comments. There is some paranormal investigator couple that I do know that made apps. They are pretty authentic, but yeah, I don't know the name of it off the top of my head, so I apologize. But I would use some discernment with apps. That's my take. Um, cool. All right, so going into the house stuff. Okay, so we talked about the schoolyard, we talked about the house, and let me just make sure that I covered everything. There was a part where the someone said hi. Okay, so okay, when we were doing the sessions, there was some interesting stuff where like I think it was we would say someone said hi on that second floor. We were in that room and it was generating these negative words, and someone said hi, and I thought that was really compelling. What did you guys? I know, Grace, when you did your video, you talked about how we were picking up on a couple, but when you looked into the history of it, you couldn't find out whether they had children or anything like that. Can you elaborate a little bit more on that?
Um, so I think the original owner, Mr. Mentry, he had children, but I know Evan, the historian, says that after he passed away, like somebody else took over the house. So I'm not sure if we were picking up on that new person or Mr. Mentry. So that's a mystery. I think that's what I was talking about.
Yeah, we'll have to. I feel like with these investigations, you have to go back a few times to like
Yeah.
test out like what's happening. Okay, so I'm gonna play the part where you talk about the bruising. Oh, actually, did you want
Oh
to
yeah.
talk about your equipment failing too? Uh, I did notice that in the footage that like your equipment, the battery died.
Oh yeah. So I have a GoPro, and battery does run fast on GoPros, but not from 8% to completely zero. I've never had that happen. But again, my phone was fine. Everything else was fine. It was just my GoPro. So I don't know. Did it overheat that day? Who knows?
Yeah.
But you said somebody said hi. What part was that?
Yeah, let me go. Let me find the timestamp. Uh, okay. Oops.
That's what I was feeling from
you guys
that
hear it?
room in particular, was that there was some kind of infidelity happening. So the house here, the energy that we're getting is alcohol, a lack of moving forward. We see bad luck, and then emotional dysregulation here.
13 years.
13 years he cheated on you?
Whoa there.
13.
13. Okay, wow. That's a long
There's
time.
13 rooms in the house.
Oh, wow. I don't think there were any spirits attached to the house, is what I'm feeling more than anything. It's more of an energy that's stuck here, and it's an energy of a fuckboy, as we see here.
Oh God.
Emotional damage and pain, which we also see replicated here. So the woman couldn't be honest and open with her husband about communicating, and so I guess her answer was, let me have another baby and get pregnant and make this better. It didn't. If anything, it just made it worse because she was never able to communicate. I wasn't happy.
You weren't happy? Can you tell us why you weren't happy?
It wouldn't stop.
What wouldn't stop? Was it
The last time
was it the abuse?
you were on my mind. Hi.
Hi, thank you for saying hi. Okay, that's cool. Thank you.
Oh, okay.
So Pythian Priestess, you heard somebody say hi.
Yeah, again, like you said, like you feel like you're just saying like random things. I didn't even realize I said hi. I do
also
remember that got
remember-
weird.
Oh.
Oh, sorry, go ahead.
What was that?
Oh, it
go
got
ahead.
weird. Like that session got strange when I had those headphones on. I usually like this, like in the schoolhouse when you were listening, it was like fuzzy, 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 clear sentence. But this was like clear sentence, clear sentence, clear sentence. It was really different.
Oh, that was you did pretty much the back to back compared to us.
Yeah. And that was like, I always question myself and try to be objective and be like, am I trying to spin this story? But those words were very, very clear. And you don't manipulate the way that you hear things. So that was strange to me.
Yeah, and what's interesting too, it's like it felt. I remember when you were doing you were wearing the headphones, Ashley, and Grace and I were standing there. It really felt like we were watching a narrative of two people fighting. Like it was like it felt like the female, if people believe that, but like the spirit of a woman was like venting about the abuse, but then it felt like they're going back and forth in an argument. I don't know
like
if you
a
got
loop.
that. Yeah, it was interesting. Felt really intense. And then like of course the whole hello. I was like, "Oh, well thanks." Like kind of like an acknowledgement like we're there.
Hmm.
Mm.
Okay, so
Yeah,
we have a question. How do you feel about ghost wedding traditions in China? Oh, I mean, I've heard of that. I don't know, honestly. I mean, I don't want to speak on other people's culture if they do those, but I don't know. Anyone else have thoughts on that or know anything about?
I've never heard of ghost weddings.
Oh, you're get ready to go into a rabbit hole.
Oh
Like
wow.
there's not from a Chinese tradition, but there was this woman who claimed that she met a pirate from the Caribbean, like
hmm
literally like from like like she described that the spirit looked like Jack Sparrow from the Pirates of the Caribbean, and he like she then had to get a divorce because her life was being like consumed, or her life force was like being drained. It was really weird. I don't know.
Yeah, she was from the UK. It was quite a strange story.
It was a very
Wait,
strange
she's talking about a ghost or like a real person?
a ghost.
No,
Like
a
she
ghost.
Oh, okay. Like it came to her in her dreams. Like how did it suck her energy?
I don't know. Like, so she said that she went to visit, I think it was at a cave, right? She went to visit, like, she was at a beach or some place, and then, like, the spirit came to her, and then she fell in love, and then she did a whole, like, marriage ceremony thing. And then
Yep.
after being married, she started to get sick and feel, like, all these things. And so she said it was the spirit, and so she had to get a divorce. It was, like, a whole, like, weird thing. But yeah.
Interesting. Okay, that's the first time hearing.
Yeah, you'll
Wow.
have to do a I'm sure you'll find that very fascinating.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I think I mean, I know Hannah, your question is more of that tradition, but I will say this. I know on my channel a while back, I did a whole deep dive on like what I believe is people having like intimacy or relationships with spirits. I don't think it's human spirits. I think it's like a form of maybe like an incubus or a succubus, what people consider that. I feel like it's some form of that. That's what I think. Especially when they're experiencing their life force, feeling like they're being drained and getting sick and all that. But yeah.
What's an incubus? Like a god?
So like,
Uh,
Ashley, yeah, you can say.
okay, so an incubus and a succubus would be infernal spirits that are of lower vibration and it comes mostly from Jewish culture and the Talmud, that they suck your life force through your sexual, because your sexual energy, your kundalini force is your life force, and through the when you would have sexual intimacy on the astral plane, because you're not going to have it in the physical realm, your energy force would then be taken away by that spirit. So an example of this is Lilith. That energy is often seen as a succubus energy.
Oh wow, thank you.
Thank you for that. Yeah, like I actually recently did a psychic circle, and someone who was telling me like they're asking the questions but they weren't being like upfront about it. And so like they're like, "Well, what do you think of that?" And I'm like, "Well, I don't think it's a human spirit. Like there's no reason why a human would be interested in that stuff." And they're like, "Are you sure? Because nothing bad happened." I'm like, "Okay, can you elaborate?" But then they went off to say that they had a very traumatic household and all this bad stuff happened. I'm like, "So then something did happen."
Yeah.
So anyway, it's an interesting deep dive that we can go on a whole tangent on.
Wow, what is astral sex like? That got me curious now.
There are a lot of celebrities that have claimed to have had like intimate relations with spirits, and I'm like I think Dan Aykroyd, Lucy Liu, Kesha, I think was one of them.
Yeah, Kesha is one of
Wow.
them.
So yeah, there's a few that went on to talk about these interesting encounters. I'm like, I don't know, man. I don't think that's a human.
Yeah,
like a wet
well,
dream.
so in this tradition, if you're interested, Grace, you want to look up this. So in Salema, that's like a thing. I don't necessarily recommend this path for anybody, but this is like where you would find that information.
Got it. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay, awesome. So let me just check what else we talked about. Okay, so now I'm gonna get into like to wrap things up or get close to wrapping up. You did a thing on the like you had a bruise. Do you want me to play that clip and then talk about it, or do you want to just talk about it?
Sure. If they want to see the photo of that bruise.
Yeah, let me get to that timestamp.
Yeah. It was definitely a bigger bruise in the photo that I took because I took it a couple days after that I actually saw it because I was like, no way.
And where was it on? Was it on your upper thigh or lower thigh? Where was it?
Yeah, it was like right next to my bikini line thigh, so it was like really high up. So there was no way that I bumped into anything at the school or anything like that.
Interesting. Okay, let me.
Mirror, which I check myself in the mirror a lot. I do. I saw this big bruise on my left thigh. This was like right next to my bikini line, and it was one of the biggest bruises that I've had in years. I can't remember the last time I had a purple blue bruise. To be fair, I was like, where could I have gotten this from? I did play with my brother's cat, and his TV is like right next to the door, so I would run into the TV multiple times, but I usually ran into it with my right leg. I don't remember running anything to my left thigh area, and even if I did, like, I would remember if it hurt so bad that I got a black and purple bruise. I took this picture literally.
Yeah, that was, yeah. It's a coincidence. Is it coincidence or not that I happened to notice the day after we did this investigation? Why didn't I notice it the day before? Or I went before, it takes, I don't know how long it takes for a bruise to come up, but.
I can answer this question for you. I know these things. So I'm interested in trying to find it. It's not like the study of bruises and like on specifically dead bodies, but bruises, they will form because blood vessels have broken. So that deep purple, almost blue-black color is a fresh bruise. And then they turn yellow and green as it's healing. So you would be able to say as it fades into that ecky color, that's like 2 or 3 days. Something like that looks quite fresh. Now, did the bruise, did it get bigger? Like, did it start small and then expand, or was it just big the entire time?
It just stayed the same for a while.
Okay.
And I remember I came back to New York and I still saw it for like a week. It stayed there for a while.
Interesting.
Yeah.
I'll have to ask Evan about that if anyone's experienced anything like that. Because that's weird. That's like, I don't like that. I don't like that happened.
Yeah. I didn't have any bad dreams. I didn't feel anything, but I mean, that was, I can't remember the last time I had a bruise like that. It was really black and purple. That photo was like a couple days after.
It's very dark. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
It's very
Very
interesting.
dark.
Have you, Ashley, I know that you mentioned that you've been in some haunted locations in the past and all that stuff. Have you ever seen anybody get scratched in front of you or anything like that ever?
So not in front of me, no. But I have often, and actually the reason I quit doing that job I was doing was because I encountered scratches multiple times on my butt, as if it was like sexual, and also on the sides of the breasts. And sometimes when that energy hits you, it does hit close towards those private areas. And so I think if for this particular location, we knew that there was a mining town, there were a lot of single men, and I wonder if there's energy of like maybe you were the most attractive one of us, according to that ghost, Grace, and it wanted to make itself known.
Wow, next to the bikini line. That's so funny.
Yeah.
Why?
Well, the other
Because
thing
you're
too
pretty.
Oh, thank
Yeah.
you.
I like
Wow.
that more because I was actually thinking of like racist ghosts because like like well, when
I
I
mean,
went,
it could be.
yeah, like no, I like that the latter better, but but I also remember my experience. It's interesting that you bring that up, Ashley, because it makes me think of the experience I had at the Leonis Adobe. So I did a seance there, and I did, all the things that I do to prepare for a seance and everything like that. And one of the people that attended, because we did it for a show, so it was myself and two other ladies and Brittany Crabb. Some people might know her on here, but she really wanted to experience something so badly. Like she would say things like, "I'm gonna be pushed down the stairs." Like she was like being a daredevil, like about it. And so when we were doing the seance, in front of me, I started to just see the scratch like manifest. Like it got really red, and then the scratch. And but it's interesting because like, not that you did this, Grace. I'm just saying in general, like for people that are, if you are scared, like that something could happen, just being mindful of that as well. Because some people just, she really wanted, and I'm like, girl, don't bring that into the seance.
Yeah.
Don't do that. But also, I think, could it have been, aside from her really wanting the experience, what you said, Ashley, like maybe she was conventionally like the most attractive one to these spirits, and that's why they did something. I don't know. Yeah.
It's very
That reminds
possible.
me that I know Pythian, when you did that, you was like, oh, it's the energy of a fuck boy. Like, were they
Yeah.
really, a little sexual?
Yeah. Interesting stuff. Wait, someone asked a question. What would you think if zombie apocalypse is real by plague, not by dark magic? Like what? Like by a combination of several kinds of rabies? Oh, I don't know. I don't know how to answer that. I mean, I do believe that like with COVID and the pandemic and everything, like more outbreaks will happen or can happen.
Sounds like a bad time. I'm gonna take a pass on that reality.
Yeah. Okay, cool. Well, before we wrap up, are there any like final thoughts that you guys had or conclusions on Mentryville? Would you go back?
I do remember Evan pointed out after I did the editing about, remember that orb? I thought that was really cool to go back to.
Oh,
It
that's right. Okay, let me see if I can find that. Was it at like,
was like right at when I was wrapping up and I was like taking my headphones off. I think somewhere around there.
oh my gosh. Well, okay, let me see if I can find it. If I go to, I know in the comments people were pointing it out too.
Yeah.
Okay, 17, it was at 1731. An orb thing. That was interesting actually, because I did notice that too. I'm like, what?
Yeah, because you could tell a difference between like dust and like a light.
Yeah. Okay.
Talking about us? Us? Yeah. Did any of that make sense?
Yes.
Yeah, it was very on point.
Now, in places where apparently there is
Did you guys see that? Should I need?
Yeah, flick here at the top.
I think there was.
Yeah, it was very.
Oh, I see it right
yeah,
there.
it was very
I just to play because it happens really fast. I just want to play it a few times.
Yeah, it was very on point.
now in
Oh, dang it! Sorry, guys.
Yeah, right?
Russian. Or Victor.
Okay, well, my mouse is just not wanting to cooperate.
Yes.
Yeah, it was
Oh,
very.
it's right there.
Yeah. It was,
Is there like explanation?
Oh, sorry. Okay, I was putting on my headphones. Can you guys hear me now?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so you asked like, what are our thoughts on the orbs?
Mm-hmm.
It's really interesting because that's the one time that the orb I feel like appeared throughout the different places that we were at, because we went to like the kitchen in the big house, we went upstairs, and I feel like the upstairs was dustier, but I don't know. And then there was also the fireplace area, and I think it's very obvious from the very beginning, like going into this, that like, let me remove this. it's very obvious from the beginning of when we started this investigation to the very end, that obviously there was something there that was really drawn to wanting to get your attention through the spirit box, the orb. Because I'm not much of an orb person, if I'm being honest. Like I'm not really a quick person to believe in orbs. I'm always trying to like dispel it or like debunk it, if that makes sense. And I feel like for this in particular, like, it said your name, it talked about YouTube, and then you got the bruise. I do think something was really trying to be known to you, that it's wanting your attention. That's what I think. I think I'm erring on that side only because of like the so many things that happened throughout the time we were there.
Yeah, yeah. Honestly, like I'm kind of like you. I try to dismiss a lot of things. That's why I went into this like wanting to experience, but definitely unexplainable things happened. I guess in my thoughts, I'm like, oh, ghosts are like a figure, like I'm gonna see, but it doesn't always manifest in that way. There's like multiple ways that they want to come through.
Absolutely. Ashley, what do you think?
From the spirit side, it does take a lot of energy to actually physically manifest. And it's easier to communicate through other wavelengths, like the spirit box. So the only time that I have personally experienced any kind of physical apparition has been in mostly negative contexts where the energy is so dense and so evil.
Oh, interesting. Do you think like higher energy, they don't like have the need to talk to us that way, or it's harder?
It's literally like, think of it as weight. So there's the density of the physical plane, like this is a physical object. The higher the vibration, when you go up into the celestial realms, that energy, think of it as getting thinner, thinner, and lighter, and it just takes more energy to manifest. Now they certainly can do that, but it doesn't happen as frequently, and it usually requires a lot of ritual, prayer, and preparation, and quite honestly a very good reason to want to do that. Whereas spirits that are closer to the physical dense plane, they can still more easily manifest, but it takes a lot of energy. So why not use radio waves? Why not use the spectrum of light rather than creating physical matter?
Yeah. Interesting. Cool. Well, thank you for that. And I really appreciate you guys joining the live and talking about Mentryville. I hope that you got some clarity, and I'm glad to hear like nothing else scary has happened since you got the bruise. Because I was like, oh my god, I hope nothing else happened. Jeez.
Anything happen to you guys after? Any dreams or is this normal to you guys?
Yeah, I didn't have anything happen to me. No, honestly.
I cleanse myself twice a day. That day I cleansed myself 4 times. So nothing happened to me.
Nice.
Awesome. All right, guys. Well, thank you so much for joining. Again, thank you so much for joining. And, I know we're going to have it in the description, but where can people find you again?
You can find me on YouTube at GrazyTV or Grazy Grace for the K-pop channels, and GE Baby K on Instagram.
And you can find me as Pythian Priestess on Instagram, YouTube, and TikTok.
All right, guys. Thank you so much for joining. Bye.
That was so fun. Bye.